Hi, I'm CarolAnn. I've spent the last 2 decades advocating as we age to embrace aging, being authentic in what I call the Sotapelli lifestyle. Hi, and welcome back. This is CarolAnn with Adventures in Aging, and today we have Bob Borneman, and he's got quite an extensive background, which I absolutely love. I love to know how people have a variety of interests in their life and bring those to fruition. So Bob has over 40 years of experience in the jewelry industry. He's received certificates from the GIA and the Colored Gemstones grading. He's also an author, filmmaker, investor, volunteer member of the United States Coast Guard Auxiliary since 1996. He's held many offices there. He was an instructor and currently overseeing the public education program in the Port Jefferson, New York area. And, I don't know where you find time for this, you volunteer and a board member for about 9 years with the Carol M. Baldwin Breast Cancer Research Fund. You also began making independent films in 2009 as a producer and writer for Snapshot, Rock Story, The Life Zone, The Great Fight, and many others. Well, Mr. Bob, welcome. And I'm telling you, this is so exciting to see so much variety in your background. Tell me, which one of these is really the love of your life, besides your wife?
Besides my wife. Glad we put that in there first. So there'd be a lot of trouble at home tonight.
That's right. It's like accepting the Oscar or the Emmy and forgetting to thank them. So we got that in.
Each thing finds a different place in your heart. I think that's why you pursue it. But I would say that the Coast Guard Auxiliary has, over the years, provided me with a lot, and I've been able to give back through that, maybe the most. Business, after 42 years in business, it's not mundane, but it becomes simpler, and so this is why I think you look for other things to expand, your mind and to be busy. I'm not A-type, and I have to conquer the next thing, I think, is what it is.
Mm-hmm. I get that. I'm the same way, always looking for something that brings me joy to do. So tell me, why did the Coast Guard, why is that something that gives you the most right now? What is that about? Well,
it's a national organization, and what drew me to it was having something in common with the members. So it was primarily related to boating, which I had an interest in, and boating safety and public safety. And as an extension of the Coast Guard, the auxiliaries basically do everything that the Coast Guard does except law enforcement. So you can, in my case, become an instructor and teach safe boating education. You could become a crew member and work on a boat. You can become a vessel examiner and sit with people and go through their boat and talk about the safety of their vessel. And then there's all kinds of environmental positions available. There's really 100 paths that you could probably take within the organization, all at the same time supporting the government. It became a very intense volunteer position after 9/11. It sort of leveled out now, but, we were providing a lot of support for the Coast Guard at that point in time. And, of course, Homeland Security is, something to be proud of, to be a part of, that process.
Mm-hmm. I never knew you could take that many different positions within the Coast Guard. Not a clue. So thank you for sharing that. I find that very respectful that you would take it upon yourself to help and support those from 9/11 on. And I assume that's probably when you became involved, being a New Yorker, yes?
Well, I was a member at that time for a couple years. And what really happened was I was in a vice captain's position at the time. So there's a lot of leadership in the Coast Guard Auxiliary. It's the Coast Guard way. They train you. You take a position, and within the Coast Guard, typically it'll be 2 years, and the expression is move up or move over. And they don't like to leave someone long-term. It prevents the position from being stale and keeps people motivated and always seeking new levels of training. And that's one of the things that the organization offers. My background in volunteering with other organizations, and that is that people come to organizations for one of two reasons. They're givers or they're takers. And they either want to give something back to society, maybe in the case of the breast cancer organization I was with, that someone in the family was afflicted, and so they want to get involved and provide support for others, and it helps them grow as well. Or they're takers and they join an organization because they can get an education, and then they turn into givers because they come and say, well, I can learn all about boating and safety and this and that, and then you get involved and you meet people, and next thing you know, you're actually giving, and under the guise of adventures in aging, when we start to talk about volunteering, I think that's one of the most critical things that seniors should be looking at, is how they can give back, because in return you receive actually a lot more than you ever give. And it's, just a different kind of compensation. You don't work for a paycheck, but you work for the self-satisfaction. Some organizations have formal awards and recognition, and the Coast Guard Auxiliary does. It's ribbons. People achieve certain positions, and they get awarded certificates and that. Some people leave them in a drawer, and some people wear them every day. So it's, up to you.
Oh, that's pretty neat. I like that. I like that a lot. I think as we age, it's important, number one, to get out and be among people. Otherwise, you can slip into depression and loneliness. And number two, the more you give back, the more you receive in return. That's just my philosophy on it.
It is. And, when you get involved, I think you stay young. When I had first joined the auxiliary, I was 35-ish, somewhere in that age range. And everyone was a senior citizen, and I didn't know if it was going to work. The average age of an auxiliary is to 62, somewhere in that vicinity, and it's been moving down a little bit, but not much. They track it every year, and it's about 30,000 or so members, I think, around the country. So it's a large organization, and
so how does one get involved in that? And I'm sure you have to be on ocean sides instead of being in Arizona and in the desert. And that sounds, I never would have thought to get involved, as you said, at the age in your 30s. I thought this going to ask you, when did you become involved in this? I thought maybe the last couple of years, 5, 10 years maybe. But quite fascinating. Why did you start so early?
Well, it was boating interest. And then I met this whole group of older guys, and they knew a lot. I went to the organization to give, and I realized I was going to learn a lot, and I did. And their backgrounds, these are all guys who also come from military backgrounds at that age. When I was 35, they were 60. They had served in the wars, and so it was quite an education about life in general and boating, and I got a lot more than I bargained for. But I did realize one thing, that these guys who were 60, 70, 80, we had a flotilla member then that was 92, were active, and they were healthy, and they were working on boats and doing, physical activity as well. So I said, there might be something to this. And still to this day, older people are joining, and the reason older people join is because that's when later in life you leave your career, you have the time. That's what most people, when you're talking about people in their 20s and 30s, they're trying to raise the family. 40s and 50s, it's a career. 50s and 60s, 70s, it becomes the time, I think, where you can look back and say, this is what I want to do.
Right. So are you still involved in your jewelry business at all?
Yeah, I go to work every week.
Oh, my Lord.
I used to go every day. I used to be able to say that. But I've made a conscious effort to scale back. And I always have been aggressive in making changes and staying up with the times, which is why we've survived this long. But I've started to have a small exit strategy where I'm working more from home, less going into work. A big thing for me about, how I do everything is compartmentalizing my time. And so I've broken down types of work that I do when I'm in the store, types of work I do in the office, things that I'm doing at home, things I do on the train, things I do waiting for the doctor, things I do when I travel. So my writing gets done if I'm going to Manhattan. It's a 2-hour train ride each way for me. So that's my writing time. most of my auxiliary work is paperwork these days in administration and preparing for classes. So I have a class. I'm in a classroom those hours. The rest of it can be done at midnight or it can be done at 7 in the morning. So you find, some structure that way.
So when you say you're writing, what are you writing now? Are we going to see a new movie?
FBI thriller.
Ooh.
It's going to be a book. I mean, I don't know if it's going to be a film, but this I've been kicking around. It's been in my laptop in pieces for a long, long time. And I'm also thinking about something related to the environment. I have all these ideas kicking around in my head.
So are we looking at the next Grisham here?
I don't know about that. We'll see what the public has to say when it comes out, right? That's the true test.
That's true. So do you ever have free time? Do you ever sit down and do nothing?
Rarely. Nothing is very, very rare. I'm not the kind of guy that can sit in the beach chair all day. That doesn't happen. I can go down to the beach and sit in a chair, and after half an hour, I've had enough of that. I work hard, but I play harder.
That's good.
And my personal life is filled with goals just like business. So, like, for example, I'll set a goal of taking 10 vacations in a year. If I make 7, well, failure is pretty good by that standard. So, but really what I try to do is use my free time to accomplish things. I haven't taken regular days off. I've always taken travel time. Mm-hmm. Now I'm starting to take regular days off. This is part of the latest transition. When I cut down my time in the stores, I mark days on my calendar as actually OFF, and we laugh about that because off to them used to be when I wasn't in the store, but I'd still be doing other things. Mm-hmm. Now I'm actually taking the days to take the country ride and to the farms and be off, So that's a new experience for me.
And that's really, I commend that because I work a lot. I work long hours. And I think it's important that we find that time to be OFF. And even when I am OFF, my office likes to contact me.
Yes. Well, I have an office manager who really makes sure that on the days that are marked OFF, that's what they are. And if I didn't have a pit bull that reminded me I'm supposed to be OFF, I would be working anyway, I think. So
cool.
That helps.
Cool. Yeah. So I'm going to take you up on that because I'm going to actually take a 2-week vacation with my family. And I'm going to designate one person to receive all my emails and filter them through. I think that's a brilliant idea. Thank you. Oh, my gosh. I'm so excited.
Awesome.
So you are dividing up, in order to accomplish all your diverse interests, you are dividing up your days and actually scheduling them out to get everything done. Is that what you said?
Correct. So my office days will be jewelry design and paperwork, things like that. When I'm home, I'm doing a lot of my volunteer work in terms of organizing, calling, and things like that. And then weather changes my day. If I have an OFF day and it's rainy, that transitions to a day that's work in the office all day. And when the weather's nice, I take the other day as an off day. So something as simple as that. But, I look at my time a little differently than most people do. And that's the most valuable asset that I have, so I make sure that I make the most of it.
Do you think that's what's keeping your mind sharp as you're aging then?
For sure.
Now, are you doing all your documentation of scheduling out your life? Are you doing it the old-fashioned way by paper and pencil, or are you doing it by phone and computer electronically?
Closer to paper and pencil. I have a book I carry with me every day that I make my notes in.
Now,
I have to cross things off as I get them done.
No, okay. Why? Because I have recently started saying to myself, I'm going to buy a calendar and I'm going back to the paper pencil route. I don't know why. It just makes more sense to me. But I would love to hear your reasoning why you use paper pencil.
So I have also a list on my laptop. That's about 8 pages of things to do, which would be more like the wish list, right? My paper and pencil is what I need to do today. So every night I start to make notes of what I have to do tomorrow, whose call I must return, what's important, And then when I get up, my day is driven by, I open my phone and I get texts and emails like everybody else.
Right.
And this form has to be filled out, and this has to be answered, and you have to do this, and you have to do that. So that sort of drives the day early in the day. But I'm always constantly making notes throughout the day, not to forget things. And it's not, I used to be afraid that I was going to become forgetful. And the reality is there's thousands of things that come through on a daily and weekly basis that you need to address and remember when you're involved in so many things. If I don't make notes, it slips through the cracks more than is forgotten. You just don't get to it. So when it's written in priority, and I write bigger when it's more important, I will, make my notes. And I can't finish my day if I don't get through those things.
Wow, I'm so all over this conversation. I'm loving it because I'm a big note taker myself. I have so many items on my to-do list on the calendar. I like your theory of the wish list and they get moved over to the daily list and checking everything off on paper, pencil, because I'm a huge organizer. But I think the biggest thing is that the fact that as we age, we always have in the back of our mind, did we forget something? Are we moving into that dementia or sometimers zone? And I think we beat ourselves up because we don't want to take notes. We don't want to mark anything down. We want to pride ourselves in having such a good brain as we're aging. But sometimes that's okay. It's okay to write things down, as you said. I love this.
Well, if there's a note, it gets done. That's what I've learned. And, there's an expression, if you want something done, give it to the busiest person in the group.
Never heard that. I like that.
Well, yeah. In the Coast Guard Auxiliary, we use that a lot. If you want something done, give it to a busy person. Because the inactive people don't get things done. They procrastinate. They will put everything on a back burner. They might volunteer to do something, but you're not getting the same effort. The person who's really busiest, surprisingly enough, has good management skills, takes that task, adds it to the other 40 tasks they have, and it gets done because they're serious. They just have that A personality where, it can't get put on the side for tomorrow.
Right. Oh,
I think that's the biggest thing, is that people that are A-types have that gift of being able to do the triage and organize the work as it comes in and say, this has to move to the top.
Right.
This can wait, 3 days. This is, it's delegated. Give this to somebody else. So, and that's another thing. With having a large staff, we have, 25 to 30 people, depending on the time of the year in the stores. I can delegate a lot of things out. So that certainly makes my productivity exponential.
That's great. What I'm picking up through this conversation is you've learned a lot of life skills at a young age from the Coast Guard people. That's impressive.
A lot of leadership training there, but just to go back even further to give you a sense of where I started, I basically started my business with $40 that I borrowed from my mom. I answered an ad in an entrepreneur's magazine to sell custom jewelry, and I bought a kit with 12 plated rings and a catalog and wrote orders, and that's how I started my business.
Good for you.
And then, 42 years later, here I am, and I have this whole conglomerate of different things that I do, and I do all of them because I enjoy them.
So which one, if you had to categorize them, which one is your love right now?
Coast Guard Auxiliary.
Yeah.
As we talked about a little bit before, I think that work is extremely meaningful, and that just yesterday I took a course on the national response framework for the country of how we respond in emergencies. And so you always have this first responder training and things that look, knowledge is power, right?
Right.
So everything that you learn, you keep, and you grow that way. So I think that just being able to put on a uniform and represent the country means a lot.
I'm loving it. Loving it. So do you think you're ever going to retire?
That's a good question. We never discussed that until about 2 years ago when I turned 60. So my wife and I, She's my business partner, my life partner.
Mm-hmm.
She's been with me since I started. We actually opened the conversation, and something interesting happened. I couldn't sleep. I developed a lot of anxiety. I really wasn't handling it well. Partly I decided that because I built this thing from scratch, I wasn't really ready to let it go. Secondly, I'm at an age where I don't feel that I have to let it go. I think my health will drive when I, think about retiring. There's three kinds of retirement. You get structured retirement for people who, after 20 years, they're entitled to retire, or they plan the company, sets a basis by which they retire.
Right.
You got unplanned retirement where people are forced into it, whether they're terminated or, the job goes away or the company closes, or 100 things that can happen that way. And then you have people with an exit strategy for retirement, which is what I'm starting to look at, but I'm probably on a 10, 20-year plan. And people look at me and say, 10, 20 years. Think about it this way. If you're 50, your career has basically been 30 years. It started somewhere when you were 20, So if you're 50 and you've worked for 30 years to get where you are, and 80 is a realistic life expectancy today, you get 30 years left.
Mm-hmm.
So, at 50, you're at the halfway point. What are you going to do with the rest of your life?
Right.
And as I mentioned earlier, like when I got involved with the auxiliary and had all these older people around me, without getting into politics, let's just talk about Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump for a second. They both, at the age of 70, ran ruling campaigns to take a job, arguably the best job in the world, but to take a job with an 8-year commitment. That was the expectation.
Mm-hmm.
So they're going to be 79, 80 by the time, they're out of office. And look at the physical shape they're in. And then you look at people who have made tremendous discoveries or started business late in life. And I read something the other day, John Glenn, with all his space movies and that, 77 in space. Colonel Sanders started Kentucky Fried Chicken, 65 years old.
That's right.
Noah Webster wrote the dictionary, 66.
Yeah. It's really refreshing to hear that you can reinvent yourself at any age.
Yes. The physical accomplishments people do, climbing mountains, running marathons at these crazy ages.
Right.
So we also have another advantage that the generation before us didn't have, and that is that science is moving at a pace where we're on a treadmill. And the question is, will we live long enough to see the ailments that we contract have a cure? 10 years ago, if you had pancreatic cancer, there really was nothing they could do for you.
Yeah.
Today, there's hope. So the question is where you're born in the timeline on medical advances will determine how long you live. Right now, you think you can live to 80, but you might live to be 90 because science allows that by the time you get to be 80. If you're only 50, in the next 30 years, think about what's going to happen compared to what's happened in the last 30.
Mm-hmm.
Every year we seem to compress in 1 year what we learned in the last 25.
Well, I personally think all the technology has aged us a lot. I really do. I think we are so tied to our phones, our computers, our social media, we've forgotten how to be humans and interact with one another, which is led a lot of people to loneliness, depression, and suicide, which is too bad.
It is. It's a tragedy. It really is. My nieces and nephews text me on my birthday, "Happy birthday, Uncle Bob." And my response has been pretty standard for the last 10 years or 5 years. So great to hear your voice.
That's nice.
And then the phone rings,
Right.
It works. And people forget that. You walk into a room today, and if there are 8 people sitting in chairs, there's 8 people on a cell phone.
Absolutely. And at dinners also. Everybody's on their mobile device instead of talking to the person sitting next to them or across from them, which is really sad.
Yeah. I'm guilty at times, but I'm aware of it. I think that's the difference. A lot of people are not aware of it at all.
On another note, in order for you to do everything you do, I'm thinking you're probably in really good shape and you stay motivated. Yes?
I wouldn't say I'm in good shape. I'm not a guy that goes to the gym. I'm not overweight and I'm not out of shape, but I'm middle of the road. I don't find a lot of time to exercise, and I've become better at that. I've built that into my schedule when I put OFF on the calendar. So that has to change for me, Active in the sense of, yes, my day's busy. I'm up or I'm around. I move, but it's not the same. My doctor tells me as exercise, and I get that. I get my steps. I still have 6,000 to 10,000 steps in a day doing my routines and stuff, regular work. I'm not the kind of guy that sits at the desk all day, so back and forth and up and down. But it's not exercise. It's really not.
But it's a form of exercise by walking, moving, and using the stairs instead of elevators.
Yeah.
Good. Good to know. I think it's important that as we age, we do make sure that we stay fit and we stay motivated to move our bodies and keep them in shape. So, a couple of last questions as we start to wrap up. You've been wonderful to chat with. Tell me, what's your best experience after 50? What do you feel like it's been?
What's my best experience? It's probably the time I take to travel. I mean, that's what I enjoy the most, seeing different parts of the world.
Nice.
Yeah.
Good for you.
Still learning, by osmosis.
Nice.
Absorbing
And
cultures and everything from architecture to people.
Very good. And last question I ask everybody, where do you find joy in your life?
That's easy.
Oh.
She's in the kitchen all the time.
Aww.
No. My wife is home, and her name is Joy. So that's where I find my joy. But my passion, really, I guess I'm driven by helping others. I think that's, really, if I had to put something on my tombstone, it would be he loved to help others.
Very nice. I think that's wonderful. You have been incredible to have on the show. Thank you very much for speaking with us today. You've enlightened us on many things, and I am most proud to hear about the Coast Guard and what life skills they have given you, and now you're in turn giving to others. So what a blessing you are to everybody. Thank you very much, and have a beautiful life.
You too. Thanks so much for the opportunity to chat.
You're welcome. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye.
So, here is your assignment for the week until we meet again. It is important for you to think about what can you do to celebrate you. What's going to make you happy? What's your authentic self? Let's hear what you've done. Make sure you let us know what you're doing to take care of yourself. Did you go out and see the sunset? Did you go see a sunrise? Did you give someone a smile today? Did you hug someone for no reason? What's one way you can celebrate yourself and report back in?